Hello everyone. Today is the lecture 3 of the engineering economy. Um, so last week we have learned the basic concept of what's this subject about. And also we have briefly touched the chapter number 1 and a little bit of chapter number 2. So today we are going to learn more about chapter number 2. And also maybe a little bit about chapter number 3. Let's see how it goes, okay? So chapter number 2 is about the cost concepts, because cost is very important part in our engineering economy. Basically, if you want to choose between options, the first thing you want to know is what's the costs for each one of them, okay? And then so you need to know what other things, what factors make the costs, and how to estimate each one of them. And then we want to learn something about the design economics, like how do you design the problem, like what function you need to solve, and what values you need to figure out. So first thing is we want to review the important concepts we have learned in the last class, some terms of different types of costs. So if you remember, first we define the cost, right? That's the resource you will use. It could be time or it could be money. You use that source and you produce something. You produce products or you produce service. So that's the general idea of what cost is. And then we learned different types of costs. First, we learned fixed costs and variable costs. So fixed costs is the cost, that part of cost doesn't change along with your production activity. Okay, so no matter how many products you produce, you still need to pay that much, like the rental for your business location, like the equipment cost. No matter how many, we just made an example of the bread shop, right? So no matter how many breads you're making every day or you're selling every day, you still need to buy that machine to make the bread. So the payment for that machine is fixed. It doesn't change, okay? But variable costs change along with how many breads you make, like the flour, like the sugar, like the yeast. So the more breads you're making, the more those materials or the more costs you're going to put under that category. So variable costs change. And then we learned the marginal costs and average costs. So marginal costs, margin. What does margin mean? Margin means on the edge, right? So marginal cost means every additional one more unit you produce, how much more you need to pay. Okay, so that additional payment or that additional cost is only regarding that one more unit. That's marginal costs. But average costs is just the average, like you just need to think about the total cost of all the products divided by the number of products you make. So average cost is give you a bigger idea, like how much cost for everything. But marginal cost tells you if you want to expand your business, you want to produce more, what is the additional cost? Sometimes the additional cost is getting lower, and that will make your general cost or average costs become smaller. And that's when you want to make an expansion. You say, okay, I want to produce more bread because the average cost for each bread becomes smaller. So I can have less cost on each one of them. right? But sometimes the story is not the same. Sometimes your additional cost or marginal cost will go up. Well, that's when you have to stop your expansion, right? That's reasonable because you look at the market. Not every business will have the expansion, right? Why? Because they already hit that maximum save they can save from the marginal cost. Like above that product level, one more unit you produce, you will have much higher marginal cost, and that will change your average cost to become higher. Then you end up with higher average cost with the same selling price. What do you get? You get lower profit. That's not what you want. So the marginal cost will tell you when you need to start your expansion, when it's the time to stop it. Okay, that's just one function of the marginal cost, and that's why marginal costs become so important. Then we learned a very interesting concept called sunk costs. Okay, sunk costs is just something you paid before, and that payment should not impact your current decision making because that payment is already out of your pocket. You couldn't get it back with any decision right now. Okay, so sunk cost is something happened in the past. Sorry. And then we learned opportunity costs. Opportunity cost is very common. We use it in our common oral language a lot. Like, okay, between two things, if you choose one thing, then what you lose for not choosing the other thing is the opportunity cost. It's very easy to understand. Okay, and the next pair of concepts we learn is recurring costs and non-recurring costs. Those are very easy to understand. The recurring cost, just something you have to. The cost happens repeatedly, like the monthly payment of your rental place, right? You have to pay it every month, so it keep repeating during the whole year. And then non-recurring cost is like one-time cost, like the cost for the equipment. You're not going to pay the equipment every month, like buy a new equipment, unless you lease it. Well, leasing is another story, but the ownership of that equipment is one-time cost. Okay. And in the last, we have learned the direct cost and indirect costs. Direct cost is some costs you can measure, you can quantify, you can allocate it to each product. Okay, you can tell, okay, for this product, it costs this much material, it costs this much utility like electricity, it costs this much workforce. That's the direct cost. But some costs, like the administrator costs, like the manager costs, you couldn't say, okay, manager Doris, her time, like 10% of her time is allocated on product number 1, and 20% of her time is allocated on product number 2. It's hard to quantify, hard to allocate her salary or her time. So the payment for the manager or for the other administration people, it's indirect cost. Okay, so those are the concepts we have learned in the previous class. Now let's just do an exercise together, okay, to see if you already get the right definition for each of those cost concepts. Okay, so here I have some descriptions or statements about a type of cost. Okay, so like this one, that's the first, and then this is the second, and then this is the third, and then this is the fourth. Okay, and I have more. This is the 5. So 6, 7, 8. So I got 8 different descriptions about cost. And can you tell me like what this description is about. Okay? For example, number 1, what term is used to describe costs that have occurred in the past and have no relevance to estimates of future cost and revenues? So it happened in the past and it has no relevance to your current choice. So this type of cost, what's the name of it? We just discussed that. Think about that, okay? I'll give you maybe 10 seconds to do so. Okay, if you already have an answer in your mind, see if that's the same one as mine. I would say this is a sunk cost. Okay. All right, number 2, what term is used to describe costs that are incurred because of the use of limited resources, such that the ability to use those resources to monetary advantage in another way is foregone? Right? So because the resource is limited, like the time and the money, so if you put your resource in this project, you couldn't choose the other project. So the other project is foregone. So what type of cost it is? Think about that for maybe 5 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so my answer will be opportunity cost. Let's move on to number 3. What term is used to describe costs that are unaffected by changes in activity level over a feasible range of operations for the capacity available? So what it means is, no matter what's your activity level, no matter how many products you produce, that cost stays the same. It's unaffected. Okay, so think about that for another 5 seconds. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi, 4 Mississippi, 5 Mississippi. So my answer will be, this is gonna be the fixed cost. Okay, because it doesn't change no matter your production activity is. Okay, number 4. What term is used to describe costs that in total changes in relation to the quantity of output or other measures of activity level? So it's an opposite side of the fixed cost, right? Because it changes along with your productivity level. All right, so this is easy. This is gonna be variable cost. All right, number 5. What term is used to describe costs that refer to the additional cost, listen, that will result from increasing the output of a system by 1 more unit. So the additional cost for the 1 more unit, of product, okay? Think about that. So for this one, my answer is marginal cost. Number 6. What term is used to describe costs that are repetitive and occur when goods and services are produced on a continuing basis? Repetitive and on a continuing basis, because it's repeated, right? That's what repetitive means. So this is gonna be the recurring cost. Number 7. What term is used to describe costs that can be reasonably measured and allocated to a specific output or work activity? Okay, can be measured and allocated. Those are just the keywords when I explain each type of cost. So if you can get those keywords, it's easy for you to determine which type of cost it is. Okay, so just catch the keywords. So if you are able to allocate those efforts, that means it's direct cost. Number 8, what term is used to describe costs that are not repetitive, even though the total expenditure may be cumulative over a relatively short period of time? Not repetitive. Well, that's the opposite side of the repetitive, right? So this one is non-recurring cost. All right. Yep. So these are just the practice you can do to get familiar with different types of costs. And actually this single problem is very important. Okay? I want you to get the right answer, remember them, and then you will see this in either your test or your final or your homework. Okay? So I give it a star. Okay, next. This is something new for today. So after we have reviewed all of these concepts, we're going to learn more concepts here. And those concepts are not about cost. It's about how to set up this economic environment we're going to work with. Okay? So those are the terms we're going to use in our future classes. Whenever we mention that, I need you to have a clear mind like what it is. Okay? This is also our language, okay, in the world of economy. So we're going to learn goods and services, consumers and producers, and also consumer goods and producer goods. And then we're going to learn utility, the value, and we're going to learn perfect competition versus monopoly. We're going to learn price, demand, revenue, cost, and profit. And I would say the last 5 are the most important things. And actually, all the future classes is going to be around these 5 things. Okay? And cost, we have already learned some of it. We know fixed cost and variable cost. That's good. So we will dig more about how to estimate costs. Okay? And now let's just start to learn these new concepts. Goods and services. Very easy to distinguish. Goods, they are something you consume, something you use, especially something you can touch, so tangible things. Like the donut, you touch it, you eat it, okay? The toothpaste, you use it, okay? The shoes, you wear it. And the car, you drive it. The doll, you play with it, okay? Those are the things you can touch, and you need them, you use them. And on the other side, the service. Service is something intangible. You don't see it, but you still need to consume it. Like the service provided by a doctor. Okay? Well, doctor is a person in real. Of course, it's tangible, but the service from the doctor is intangible. Okay? And that is service. And the service from a taxi. Okay? The taxi car itself is a product, is a goods. But the service of moving you from point A to point B, That's not tangible. That's the service we talk about here. And the babysitter, okay? Babysitter service, take care of your kids. That's the service. And pet groomer, okay? The groomer himself or the tools he used is a goods. But the service to clean your pets, to give it a shampoo, okay, or to give it a haircut, that service is intangible. Okay, so goods are something tangible and service are the things intangible. But I think they are very easy to distinguish. And then the consumer and producer. Consumer is the person who used that product or who used that service. And producer is the one on the other side who produced that goods or who provide that service. Okay? And that's easy to understand. But here, consumer goods and producer goods, they're all goods. Okay? They're all tangible things. But the consumer goods are those goods that satisfy the wants of a consumer directly. So the goods you as a consumer use, like that toothpaste, like that shoes, okay? But producer goods are those goods which satisfy the wants of a consumer indirectly, like the wants of a producer. Okay, so for example, this man is buying goods, right? Looks like he's a consumer, but the purpose of buying these goods is to provide raw material, foods for the hotel, for producing meals in the hotel. Okay, so those goods are used for the production, not for the direct consumption of a person. So this is producer goods. Okay, so think about the difference, okay? If this man is buying something for himself to consume, that's gonna be consumer goods, okay? Here are the other concepts like utility. Utility, here the utility is not like the utility you pay for in your rental, like the electricity, garbage, water. No, not those things. Here, the utility is the power or the functioning of a product. What it means. So, for example, metal, like iron, raw iron, right? The raw iron itself is very cheap and it's useless for normal people like us. If you give me a ton of raw iron, well, I don't want to accept that. It's just a waste for me. It doesn't have any function at all, right? But if somebody put the raw iron in the factory and after some type of procedure or process, that raw material become a car, okay? Well, it's still made of iron or steel or metal, but now it has a function, okay? Although it could be more expensive, but with the function, I will consider to buy it, okay? So that function embedded in this raw material is utility. To make something useful for the consumers. Okay, and the way you make something become useful, sometimes it's the change of the material form. Okay, like you change the shape of the material, you change the ingredients in the material to make it useful. Sometimes it's the change of the location. Okay, so some material is useless in one location, but it maybe in another location it's useful. So to make things from useless to useful, to give it a function so that producers will need it, will want it, that's called utility. Okay. And second, the value. Value is something to measure the utility. Okay, so if I say a car is more expensive than a razor blade, although they're all made of maybe iron or steel, the same material, but the function is different. Okay, so they have different values. And the third thing is, okay, now we talk about the competition and the market. So perfect competition means in the market, you have multiple suppliers, and those suppliers are free to enter or exit this market. Okay, there's no fee to enter, there's no punishment to exit, and free to sell or buy. Okay, if you want to sell the product, you can. If you want to stop selling it, yes, you can. And the purchase is also free. You can choose whatever you want to buy. Okay, and the perfect competition is the ideal and easiest condition for economic analysis. So ideally, our models and the functions are all based on this free, perfect competition. Okay, and one example you can think of is eBay. If you have never sold or bought something on eBay, you know the rule, right? So everybody can be a customer. Everybody can be a seller. You just need to fill some forms and give some credit record, and then you can build up your profile to sell anything you want. Okay, and you also can go to the eBay to buy anything you want. So there is no punishment or no extreme fee. Maybe they have some service fee for the website, but there's no extreme fee for you to enter or exit. So this is one example you can think of as a perfect competition. The opposite side of a perfect competition is called monopoly. Monopoly means on the market you only have one single supplier. Okay, so that one single supplier will determine the market, especially the price. That single supplier will determine how much one product sells and how many products on the market. So that supplier has the control of the market. It sounds very unhealthy, okay? Because if just one company control the price, then the customers won't have the ability to negotiate, okay? You can only buy it or not buying it. You don't have the power to negotiate about the price because you don't have other choices. Well, rarely occur. This is unhealthy. So this is something our nation doesn't allow for. So we have regulations on merging. So if there are two big companies who sell electricity and it turned out they want to marry and they want to merge as one big company, that's not that's hard, and that's probably not possible in our nation because there are regulations, and if you want to do this, you have to go up to a lot of process for the government to approve. So it's very hard. And also we got substitutes. Okay, so those are the things the government will make sure there is no single monopoly in the market. All right, and here, these are the left 4 concepts. They're very important, okay? If we say the previous ones are just language, like you just need to understand. But these 4, you really need to know what's their definition, how do you calculate them, okay? So pay attention. First, price. Price is how much you sell or how much you pay for a unit of product. We usually say price per product, price per unit in this subject, okay? And the demand, so price is something you can think as value, okay? It's just value, sometimes it's maybe not monetary, but price is always monetary. And it's always in some unit, like US dollars, Canadian dollars, Japanese yen, okay? That's the difference. But it's a quantification of the utility. It's a term of value. And demand. Demand is how many units of a product you sell or are consumed on the market per day, per month, or per year. So if we talk about demand, we always think about like how long, what's the period, right? It's a cumulative number. It's like the demand, like the products you sell per day, the product you sell per hour, if it's really popular, okay? Or the products you sell per month. So you always connect that amount of products to some time frame. So that's the demand. And the revenue. Revenue is the total amount of income generated by the sale of goods or services. Let me give you an example. So if you're running that bread shop, okay, so every night, if you're the boss, you're so happy because it's the time for you to count the money in the cashier box, in the machine. Okay, you sit there and you're so happy, you're excited to know like how much you have in that box. And you count, and then it end up with maybe $1,000. Well, is that the time you feel so happy? Not yet, because think about that. That 1,000 is not is not your profit. It's just the total income. And now you have to think about, okay, what's the bill I have to pay for today? Like, what's the material cost? What is the electricity cost? What is the rental cost for one day? You have to average them on a single day. And then that's your cost, right? So now you need to use the $1,000 revenue minus the cost for running the shop for a day. And then what left is the number you can happy for. Okay? If you have heavy cost, then maybe you only end up with $200 per day. Well, if you manage to low your cost to 200, and then you end up with 800 per day, and that's the moment you can feel happy, because that $800 is gonna be your profit. That's what you earn in your pocket. Okay, so revenue is not the figure you're happy for. Okay, whenever you see the revenue, it only tells you how much you sell and how many products you sell. It only tells you the market itself, the market needs. That's not the number you're gonna happy for, because it's not the real money you gain in your pocket. You have to think about the costs. All right, so last, profit. That's the thing you pursue, and that's the thing you can happy for. Okay, if you got high number for profit, congratulations. If you got low number for profit, well, you need to think about the solutions. Okay, and so profit typically called net profit or the bottom line, because really profit is the goal. You want to have the profit at least bigger than zero, so that you are earning money, not losing. Okay, so profit is the amount of income that remains after accounting for all expenses, debts, additional income streams, and operating costs. So profit is the net thing. It's like considering all the other expenses. What do you have left? Okay, so price, demand, revenue, profit. And here should be our old friend cost. But since we have already learned so much things about cost in the previous class, so I didn't write it down here. But these are the 5 things we're going to study. Okay. So from now on, we're going to learn some functions. And those functions are important and really needed in the homework or in test or in examples. So you want to pay attention to the function itself and how to use them. Okay? You don't have to remember the function because our exams or tests will be open book and open notes. So you always have the chance to go back to check, okay, what is the function exactly? But you really need to know how to use it. You want to know from a given condition, what's the value of each of these symbols, so that you can insert the values into the function and get the right answer, right? Okay, so the first function we're going to learn is the total cost function. Total cost, we write it as C capital T. C is cost. Okay, and the capital T is total. So that's the way we write total cost. You don't have to write the 2 words. You just need to write this symbol, CT. Okay? And so CT, total cost, equals to total fixed cost plus total variable cost. Remember that we have learned the fixed cost and the variable cost, right? So the total cost should be the sum of these 2. And the total fixed cost is written as CF. C is cost and F is fixed. So CF, whenever I write CF, you should know that's the total fixed cost. And total variable cost is written as CV. C is cost and V is variable. Okay, so this is the first function. And then usually the variable cost is not given in a total number. It's given in the number per unit. Okay, so if variable cost per unit is C lowercase v, so it's lowercase v means it's per unit, okay? Means it's not total. Okay, so be careful about this C capital V and C lowercase v. They are different. Okay, and so if you are given that the variable cost per unit is C lowercase v, then the total variable cost CV will be what? Will be the C lowercase v times the demand. So D is the demand. Okay. So if this is the number 1 function, this is gonna be the number 2 function about the cost. Okay. So if you want to calculate the total cost, you need to determine the total CF and the total C uppercase V. Okay. And sometimes the uppercase C uppercase V, the total variable cost is not given. What you have, the variable cost per unit, the C lowercase v. So in that case, you have to calculate the total variable cost C first using this function, number two function, okay? And then you insert it back to this function number 1 and then to calculate the total cost. Make sense? So give yourself a second to digest this, and then let's read this example. So given fixed cost to produce breads, so we're still running a bread shop, okay? Yeah. So we're running the bread shop, and the given fixed cost to produce bread is $300 a day. So total fixed cost is $300 a day. We can write it down here. C capital F, that's the total fixed cost, is $300 per day. Right? That's what the first sentence tells you. And the variable cost per bread. Variable cost per bread, what it means? It means this is the C lowercase v, because it's per bread, per unit, okay? It's not total. Per unit, not total. So you can write C lowercase v is what? Is $0.8 per bread. Okay. You produce 100 pieces of bread per day, and we assume that you can sell all of them. So this 100 pieces is your demand, is your D. So you can write D is 100 pieces. Okay? Okay, let me show you these arrows so you know where it's from. Okay, what's the question? What is the total variable cost? And what is the total cost? So we got two questions. Question number 1, what is C capital V? Okay, the total variable cost. And the question number 2, what is CT? Okay. So those are the two questions we have. For the first question, CV, we have this function, right? So C capital V is C lowercase v times D. And what is C lowercase v? It's $0.8 per bread times, what is the demand? It's 100 pieces. Okay, so the answer is what? Is $80 per day. Okay, and what is the total cost? Total cost is based on this function, right? So CT is CF plus C capital V. CF is 300 per day, CV is, we just calculate it, $80 per day. So the total is what? Is $380 per day. Okay, this is the result. So I want you to understand the function and especially how to use it. And whenever you have a given condition, how do you translate the sentences into some conditions like this? Like the values for the symbols in the function. And then you just insert those values into those functions. Okay. And let me see if I can change the color. So here I just want to point out that this is the function we used. Okay, so on this slide, you need to understand those functions, you need to understand those symbols, and you need to understand how do you translate the example conditions into those, into the value of the symbols. Okay, let's see. All right, so that's all for today. So today we reviewed the concepts of different types of costs, right? And then we learned some language we're going to use in this subject. And especially we learned the 5 important concepts: the price, the demand, the cost, the revenue, the profit, right? We learned those concepts. And then here we introduced the first 2 functions we're going to use. It's all about the cost. Okay, so just have some time to digest this information and especially pay attention to this single slide. Okay, this is also very important. Those functions are needed in the future calculations. Okay, so make sure you understand everything on this slide. All right, so this is for today. I'll see you on Wednesday.